backwards or forwards in the sequence also. Here are control velocity pads. So you can control our sounds here. For example, I'll press this. So in 10 is the bank where the drums are. Now sometimes the levels are up and down. You want to keep them pretty much that same velocity. That's how I prefer to do it generally all the time. So I'll set that up when I'm actually in a sequence. Otherwise, you hit as hard as you can, and you can get that level for each one of those sounds. Now, here is our part mixer. We can control and mix parts, or we can also use this as a sequencer, or in a sequence setup, we can also use it in the mixer setup also as well. So we can mix parts, but it's a mix up everything we can do in that section. Now, these also act as assigns and also as mixer assigns. So here, for example, we've got 1 through 8, and we can have 9 through 16. So we have 16 separate tracks we can actually assign in mixing. And we have our part mute, or we can press here, press the shift and 1, and we can just get that one part to play. I'll press play now. That one part's playing. That part is part 11. I can go to here again. So I'm bringing parts in.
Baby, help me understand. Help me understand.
6, 7, Control 2. See, I'm mixing it. I'm actually mixing the tracks up. And the vocals are right here.
Help me. Baby, help me understand.
So all the vocals right here on 12. So what we're doing there, as you can see, we are controlling certain parts of the mix. And this is our controller section. So by pressing shift, as you saw, I was able to just go, hey, I just want that one piece to do it. So I just get solo one part and get that one part to be the part I want to select to mute. Or, there you go. See that? It doesn't work that way. So I have to press the mute, and we're in there, and we're muting the other tracks, and the one we select while shift is pressed is the one we're going to hear. Now, always in the sequence modes, you'll notice that that's the drum part. So these parts maintain the same position. That means 1 through 8 or whatever, the same position they're going to be. See that? Still playing the drum part. Notice that? Because we're now in the mixer mode. This is on with mixer assign. This is our control section. Now right here is our mastering section. Now if you're wondering how we actually play these sounds, maybe your machine, you haven't updated or actually loaded up your demos. We'll expand on that right now. First we want to do is we want to be in display. We're in pattern. We've got pattern lit up here, and we've got display going on here. And we'll zoom in here and get this display so you can see it much better. There we go. That's better. Okay, here I'll press menu. Now menu is right next to your display screen. It's to the immediate right hand, right in the middle of the screen, to the right hand side, you'll see a button. It's called menu. When you get to menu, you're going to move our cursor down and go to utility. Once you get to utility, we're going to press enter. Now once you press enter, you see right here we can press F4 for factory reset. So we press F4 right here, and we get factory reset. To execute factory reset, we press F6 to execute. And now we're going to load up the factory settings. So go back to the original factory settings if you're starting out with your machine. It's important. So you start from the beginning. We will examine some of these songs in here, and you look at some of the MIDI information and how some of these tracks are recorded. Then we're going to record our own stuff. But for right now, we're going to explain how the machine works. So we're going to load up the factory settings, and we'll hear some of the sounds you just heard just now, the last track. I'm going to explain how our MC909, the front works. So you understand how these buttons work and what they can do. Buttons, knobs, and sliders, and everything. Okay, now once you load those factory resets back in, it's going to load them back in. It says, please turn off. So we turn it off right now. You find my power buttons right over there, and we turn it off. Now I'm going to turn it back on. Now it's going to reload, and it should reload the factory settings back in. And now they're loading up again. Once they load up, we're ready to go. Here we go. So, that's how you get your factory settings back up. I'll press play, see what pattern this is. Stop that. That's just one sequence in that pattern, right? Now that's just pattern mode. Now we'll go back here a little bit more. Whoops. Okay, here we go. That's just pattern mode. So I got pattern mode pressed there. I can go to song mode. And in song mode, we can see the songs. I can press this button right here. And as you press song mode, the different sequence will come back in. I can press stop now, and then I can pick and select whatever songs I want to select. Now at the top you see what's going on. It's the song mode, and then right below that this of course says bass and drum. That's bass and drum. These are the sequences that go to that mode. And so how I'm getting there is that I am using this value knob to go through the tracks to see which songs are in there. Like here's the R&B song we were hearing before. I get to that and it says R&B. You can see in your machine. I'll press play, and I press it from the top. We can press mixer sign, or a part of sign there. See that? We have our mixer going on here. And you see the mixer come up right here. There's our mixer right there. Second control, so bring the sounds down. See, I can bring them back up, bring them in, and I got one sound playing. And here I'm in parts. Like before. So, we're going to stand now. It's our control section. Here we can control parts. We have our mixer assigned. We have our part to assign a part. We also have our mute and select a particular. So here we're in mute, and here I can also just select a particular track, let's say. I can select it and go with it. I have my tempo mute control knob right here. See that? Now here's our mastering section. I go to mastering, And we're going to press here, which is this section, you press F5, and we're in mastering. And what mastering allows us to do, it allows us to give us some sort of control over the frequencies, the highs and the mids and the lows in the output of our MC909. Okay, so now what I'm doing right here, I'm going to press the song mode, and we're in song right here. And I got this song selected here. Let's go, this is like a hip hop thing I believe they got in here. Let me zoom in for that now. You can see it right there. So, the options we have here are the next step, it's doing it right now. It shows the next step, the current step that's in the menu. So going from, this is the next step, it says next there and it says current. And once this current pattern ends, the next pattern goes in. See that? That's the current one. This next one going in next, which is 160 again. See that? The length, you see it's 8 bars. This is 8 bars for that length also. We have song edit, mixer, effects, and mastering. I'm going to start with the mastering. We can go to mastering right here. And we press mastering. We can see some user preset that has hip hop right here. See, that's a hip hop set. I can press F2 and give it a techno mastering feel or breakbeat feel here. Or go to user and make my own settings. So, or I can close this window. If I make a user setting right here, for example, the best way to maneuver around here is to use the cursor. So move our cursor up, and you see it move here into the high, right? So, on our mastering we have knobs, and we'll show you that next. Alright, so here, when we're using mastering, we have this section here we're working from. We got our high, our mid, and our low band. So we can travel between the 3 different sets, high, mid, and low. We have this compression ratio working on, which is like somewhat a compressor for each high, mid, and low, to either boost it or to eliminate some sort of attack K or the threshold or ratio to compression and a level that we have. And so when we're in high, we can use the attack and the release here for the high. When we're in a low, we can use, in the mid rather, we can use the attack and release for the mid. Go to low, we can use the attack and the release for the low. And this turns it on, of course, or off. As we just showed you already, we showed you how these knobs work for the mastering. Now, I'm in high, I press that band with the mid, and now we're in mid, see? And I can turn these knobs here to do the attack and the release. Now the other section here, where we have our threshold, our ratio, and our levels, we can use the data wheel for that. And we move the cursor to move back and forth. And we can go down with the cursor with the data wheel, and go down one more time with the cursor. And that works right over here. So I can go up with the cursor, or down, or across, and here is my value knob. I can also use the decrease and increase right here. This is in smaller increments. Now, a way to move even faster on our MC909 is to hold down the shift button, and we move in larger increments rather than small increments. That means it'll move up faster, to go through the digits much faster when holding down the shift button when using our value knob or our cursor when increasing some sort of a parameter, numerical number of course, or our DC or INC, which is to decrease or increase data. So here, I can move very quickly. Here, real quick. It's really fast when you hold down that shift. And you'll see it right here. Now here, for example, I can go to move my cursor up here to threshold. Now I turn my data wheel. That's how it happens. It's 0, right? Now hold my shift button down. Just move a little bit, and then it moves in larger increments. So I went from 0 to minus 35 in a matter of seconds. Meanwhile, I can turn my data wheel, and it goes by each step. 17, 16, 15. Hold the shift button down, it goes much faster. That's a faster way to go, even up to some sort of parameters faster or slower. Hold the shift button down and turn your value knob or your increase or decrease buttons, and you're good to go. Let's explain some more of the control section here. We also have our exit. So I can exit my mastering mode and get back to where I'm at. I can also enter data from right there also. I can also write information. I can write a value. This is our mode section right here. I can go from song to pattern to patch or sample. And select. So different instruments have different tone settings. And that's how we use that. I can use different settings. I'll take this one off the front. Sort of a background sound. Or use these two. And get a stronger tone, almost like a keyboard sound. So we have our tone switch and our tone select also. And I said before, these are our matrix controls. This is the random modifiers, fat, unison, or portamento. The portamento going on in unison. Take a solo off. And fat, of course. And our matrix control. I'm just hitting these pads here. So I'll explain just about everything here on our machine. We also have our tap here for our tap tempo. Right there. And we have our effects, sampler, our control data section, sequencer. I explain just about everything. I'm just going to press play. See this? It's right there. And we've got our pattern going on. See that? This is how we can do it. It's a simple way to do it. It may seem difficult at first, but it's a great way for you to understand the machine and help you to correct patterns, and you'll get a stronger understanding how patterns work by watching what's going on right down here. This allows you to see the whole thing go by. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. So these 4 and these 4, this 4, that 4 is the first beat, second beat, third beat, fourth beat, first beat, second beat, third beat, fourth beat. See that? To understand how those patterns work. So I just pressed micro view, of course. And we can go ahead to micro view. And we can see what happened. Everything that happened before we already see right here already. But I can go backwards in micro view. And here. And it's the first pattern. See that? As we go by, this tells us what's going on. We know this is the hi-hat, this is the snare, this row here are the kick drums. And up here, it tells us the velocity, which is 120, the notes that we hit. The part they belong to, part 10, that note. The position of where it's at in the sequence. See this here? This is all data here. That's our MIDI data recorded right there. I can go back to switch my view. See, close it. I can go to exit, and I'm back where I was at before, from the main overview of the parts and the measures. Now also, when we select copy, we're going to notice that all 16 parts are selected here. See that? If I didn't want to have a part, I would turn off and I wouldn't select that part, see? Let's say if I didn't want this part. Now watch this. If I said I didn't want that part to be selected, it'll be grayed out. I'll press that button again. See that? It gets grayed out. So if you don't want a part to be copied, you just press any one of those buttons. Say, I only want to copy a certain parts. So in this case, I really only want to copy that 10, but these are all on at the same time. This is important to know in case you're doing a whole sequence. So you only want to copy maybe just these 4 parts here. You turn all these off first. Then it'll copy these parts. You press copy, you go about, you pick the length, the source from, source end, and you press that copy. Copy puts it in a copy holder, and then you select the destination to where you want to copy those specific tracks and the specific measures. And once you got our sequence in, it's kind of cool, we like it. You can do several things to your sequence, obviously. We're back here on our main sequence page. We have the sequence we selected, which is our user 001. Its current location is 3, third measure, third beat. Go back to the top of that measure. If you want to start from the top, which I prefer to do most of the time, I just go to the top here. Then we get back here. It says 1, of course. Now sometimes you want to slow the tempo down. You can press play. I'll press play. I'll turn this up to here. I may want to slow it down some. And now we're slowing it down. And it's playing the same pattern over. I can close the window. And of course, the next current pattern comes up. This one's in play, which is the same pattern over again. And it comes up like it's going to go, see? It's again. You see it? Perfect. I can go back to BPM, and I really want to get the pattern, the speed I had before I liked a lot. Back to the same speed. I'll press stop. Okay, sometimes you got a beat, you like the beat, and you want to change the sounds. Here's how we can do that. We'll press play. Okay, now I'll press patch. Now see, press play, we press patch. Now you got to make sure one thing, that 10 is selected. See it's selected right there? We got to make sure it's selected. That way, we can use it. Okay? Now, I can turn my data wheel here. See that? I can select a different one. See that? Or move the cursor up. So I'm selecting different drum parts for this one. So see what's going on here, I move the cursor up, we hear nothing at all. I did it to let you know that these are other parts of the 16 parts that we can have, or selections we can have for that particular part. Different patches. There are 16 here. So these are 16 patch plays for this pattern. Now down here, I'm actually in 10. See that? So now these are rhythm tracks. See, it's an R next to it. R for rhythm, R, R, R. These are rhythm parts in this patch. So I can change, and since each patch hit before is always going to be a snare, each one of these sets is set up so that I can hear different tracks, different sounds. So, got my card right here. So that's the card. I'll put the card in like this, right here. And the card's in. So now, I've named the pattern already. It's pretty simple. You turn the data wheel, you find what you want, you go to the next one, get the right, what you're looking for, I'll name it test. Next one here is test. Another T right here. If I wanted, I can make it capital, change type, press that one. See that? I'm now in numbers. I'm back here. I got T. I'll press right now. I'm going to press F6. Now I'll press F6 here to write. Now, I can write that pattern right there in the user bank. I'll press write it, execute, and that pattern's complete. And now it appears in my user list, right? That's kind of cool. I can press write again. Got that pattern on the right. Sounds good. I'll press F1. I'll press write again. But now I want to write to the card. You never know. I mean, I want to keep it. To do that, we're going to go over here and press this button here. And if our card's in properly, there we go. Our card's in, we can now write this to the card. I can press enter, execute, and that pattern's now written to the card. See that? The BPM, it's written to the card. C for card. That's how we can save our data. Now once you say it's pretty good, pretty simple to do, say right there, that's the username right here. And we got our preset stuff, or our user stuff here. We can go to write. Now sometimes you may want to write, I may have added those effects in I was trying earlier, so I may want to write that patch, that rhythm patch down also. It's important. I'm going to write the pattern set down. We'll go over this later on though. Okay, next I'm back here in pattern. Now that was a step edit method we did earlier. Now, when we record, I would go here to list, and I'm in user, I go to another blank. That's the blank one right there, press the cursor button down. Now I'm in that new blank sequence. A little closer for you to see. See that? It's empty. I'll select that pattern. It's selected. I can press record. I can press play. So now I press play and press record. See that? I didn't press the TR button. This is real-time record standby. Tempo is too much for me right there. Our default obviously is this one here. We don't want that. I'll hold my shift button down. I'm going to move faster. Get back to 90 again. Maybe at 90. Then release the shift button so I can get the little intensity in there and I can get that to go to 90. Perfect. I like what that is right. That sounds good. I close this off. As you can see, that also the click is on now. See that? Now here I can set the parameters, not like before. Now I can make it, it's a 2-measure counting. See that here? We have a record 2 measures click in. We have the record measure length, only 4 beats. 4 lengths. We have a record beat, which is 4/4. We have loop record, set the off. Quantize to set the off. Quantize to 100%. And my record velocity, that means when I hit a pad, it's going to be that loud. Notice here, again, I'm on 10, my rhythm set's right there. Good. Now next. What I prefer to do, how my setup runs, I like to let my loop record go to on. I'm going to quantize the value. I'll use 16th notes for this particular demonstration. That's good for me. Now, let's get a much wider view. And we're right here on it. So I can press 2. I can pick the drum sounds I want. And see, now it goes straight through each time now, but it tells me on top here the measure that I'm on. You'll see that each measure I'm going by. 2, 3, 4. Then 4, 4, 2, 3, 4. So it keeps going back and give me this one extra that goes into it. Now watch, that means I have one extra measure in there that's used just for me to catch up my breath or whatever I want to do. So in this case, I can press stop. I'll put that out, so that's good. I gotta record. Record again. I'm in record here. I like that. And of course, I want it to go. So I want to make sure that I'm ready to record my sequence. Once I do, I can hit any pad I want to do, and this is in real-time recording. Okay, so now I've pressed sampling, and I'm in the sampling menu right here. As you can see, we've got sampling, resampling, mix, auto divide, solo, and of course, cancel. We can cancel and get out of sampling right back to our main screen. Let's go back to sampling again. I'll press sampling. And here I'm going to go sampling. I'll press the F1 key right there. And we're in the sample mode. As you can see, it's the sampling right here. Inputs, of course, we showed you earlier. This is our analog, it's our digital inputs for our coaxial input, which I'm using right now from a CD player. I'll turn my CD player on. And of course, see how levels go back and forth here. We're sampling in stereo. So I've got no pre-sample time set up here at all. So I might as well do a little bit of that first. And I'm used to using the data wheel here, and the cursor and the increase or decrease buttons right below the data wheel. And these levels going, they're going to be pretty good levels. Now I can go to volume and control my input. See, it's hard to distort, so we don't distort too much. Keep it perfect sound, but you really can't control the digital in. You just have to make sure that your input level is set for the right level. As you can see here, it's going to be a constant. Of course, it's digital input. That means it's taking the audio from the CD itself that I have in here. Now, let's pause this. Now, when sampling in, of course, we're going to make sure that we're sampling in. I prefer to go in stereo for one. Okay? So, I'll make sure I'm in stereo. Got my input select. As you can see right there. We've got our, I'm going to trigger manually. I'm going to hit this button right here, the F6. I'm going to trigger manually. We got our sample length. I want to make my length right here. I don't have to, because I'm just going to sample it and run right there. I want a specific length. And no need for the auto trigger level. But I will keep it at 5, which is the default setting. And we have the gap time. Now, I'm going to select my sample. Let's see what I'm going to get here. And I'm going to press the button. So my levels look pretty good so far. They're going to be consistent pretty much on this CD. Now when I'm ready to sample, I'll press that start button, which is F6. I'll press stop. Now I'll pause the player, and you'll see here the sample forms. We've got it right there in front of us. We've got the entire sample length, and the areas here we have the high and low little pieces right across these lines, with the apex across the line there. This is our sample file. And next we'll get the beginning and the end of this file and show you how that's done. I want to show you one more thing. Now, if I get a sample and I don't like, I think it's bad, I'll press menu right here. I'll move the cursor down to delete sample file. And I'll select enter. And that will delete my sample. So, if you want to delete your sample, you can. And this way you'll actually, keep what you want to keep, get what you want to get rid of. Now, to pull up samples, I'll exit this. And I'm going to press sample list. I'm going to see a list of the samples that were taken. And once you save them to the card, you should name them if you're going to save them to your card. Right now, this is the user memory for my sample list, and that's the sample I just took. Okay, so we're in sample list, and we see our sample right here. We can press select. And once we select that sample by pressing F6, we'll see the sample right here in a view. Now, the lower view gives you a much more fine-tuned look. Now, to actually trigger these samples, we can look at our keys down here at the bottom. And I can hit these keys here. As you can see, they get the sample faster and faster each time I move up. If I can select the speed I want to have that sample at. Let's go back up here. And we'll check out our sample now. Right here. So what we want to do, we want to cut the beginning and the end. We probably want to truncate it, but we want to get our start time. So to get our start time, we can move our data wheel. And we move our data wheel back, as you can see here. And what's happening now, you're seeing it move back, and we're going to get closer and closer to the sample. And we're moving them closer and closer and closer and closer until we get to the edge of it right there. Now, a lot of times I want to make sure my files are clean. That means beginning and end are cut off perfectly. So if I want to loop it, it'll loop back and forth without having a single problem. And the best way to do this is to actually get a much closer view horizontally and vertically. Now, here's how we do it. I tend to look at the beginning first, so I'm going to move the cursor up here. I'm going to go from end point to the start point. So I'm going to press the cursor up, and now we see the start point of my sample. We can see that there's a little bit of space between the S right here and where the sample starts, and we see the space here. I want to get rid of that space. Now, what I'll do here is I'll press zoom, which is F6. Now here in zoom, we can see here we have the horizontal and vertical we showed you before earlier. So what I'm going to do here now is I can turn the data wheel if I want to, and you'll see down here we have the vertical moving. See that? So I can, the vertical, see that? That gets me a little further away, so I can do that. And then I can close it, then turn the wheel and get closer. See that? So make sure you actually close that parameter first, then turn your data wheel. Otherwise, you turn zoom on and move the data wheel, you're just going to be changing the vertical view of our sample. So, then I'll close it. Now when I get closer, now I'll turn the data wheel again. So you can get closer now. Right to the edge of that sample, right there. That way I want to zoom again, just so I get a much better view. I want to make sure I'm right up on that sample. See, we're right there. You can see now that my vertical view has magnified my sample. You can see the little bits of it here as it crosses the apex, this line right here, up and down across that line. And you'll notice there's the peaks and the value, of course, of the sample. And right here, I'm trying to get to that little space. So I'm going to close it. And now I'm going to move the cursor over there a little more. And now we're right here on the edge of the start point. Start point's right there. And I can go to zoom again and turn my data wheel. As you can see, since I am turning it, you'll see this little graph here move back across to the left. That's a little too much there, but it's for demonstration. And I'll close the window. Now to test it, I'll hit the pad. Now it's important to hit the pad. I want to make sure I'm hitting the beginning, the direct beginning of the sample. I want to get the very top of it. So I hit the pad, I want to feel. And I'll hit up and down and get a feel. So we get a feel of the sample right there. See that? Turn up a little bit more so we can hear it. So any one of these pads, of course, will. Here we're going to do right now. I can change the type. F1, we've got this small. We got this alphabetized with numbers. With a small type, a large type. As I press, you can see it went back to A. And of course, I can use the plus or minus. And then I can move the cursor over and then name it. See that? We'll move around here and I go to this and I'll move it to here. So I'm going to go back up to here. So I'm going to go back over again. So I made a mistake there. So I'm going to go back to here again. Then go over. And one more time. I want to get a T right here, beat. And I'll call it beat 001. I can press, of course it says delete, you can delete what you wrote down or insert something here. You know, insert like a space, you see that there? Or I can delete that space, that's pretty simple, right? And I can move the cursor over again. And I can move it again over here. So I call it beat loop. So I'm turn the dial now back down. I may want to get a cap. So you can keep turning the letters here, but you can go press change type. See that? I'll just press change type. And I'll go to here. And I'll press this to change type again. Yep, and I want the smaller letters. And I want to go over here again, and I'll go back up here. So I'm in the same type, so it's amount to change the type now. I'm the right type I want to be in. Go to my last one here, and here I want to put the P for beat loop. Now once I got the name, I'll press write. And it says, okay, we want to write it, so we have to give us a destination. Whoa, so a user patch or save it to a card. So I can save it to the card, you can see right there. Or I can save it to a user destination. So I have these user internal space I can save it to. So these are user patches, and I could write it there. I can go back up to the top here. These are internal user patches. I could write it right there if I want to. So we can pick the destination for where we want to write our data to. And that's very important. Okay, I've got this all selected here. This is our, let's see, this is 154. This is the R&B jam here, right here. And we can see the tracks right here that are playing currently. And turn some of these tracks off. Okay. So now I've got that one snare drum. What we're going to do right now, I'm going to mess with the effects here. Got effects. We have here, that's part 11. As you can tell, that was part 11 down there. And right now I have it going through a compressor, which is right here, to the MF effects, which is here, and then to, this can be sent right here to the reverb. See that little cycle right there? Now watch this. So you hear a little reverb right there, right? So this is the sound being sent to the reverb. So we're going from here to the compressor. This signal now is being fed into the MFX right through there. I'll go back to my MFX right here. And here we can actually change the parameters of the MFX. Now this is MFX1. Let me turn this off here so you get an idea what's going on. We can change the reverb, of course. This is a step phaser. So we can move the cursor back up here. And we can select any one of these parameters from 1 to 38. And 0 is just a through. That means it's just going to go right through, directly through, without going through the MF effects. But you can also assign the output assign here. See that? In this case, I'll make that dry. Now it's not going through anything at all. Now go back into the routing again. So now we're in the router again. As you can see here, we have 0 for the MFFX1, but we're using the reverb. Let's turn that off. Start dry sound again. See, now it's a different sound. I got the reverb again, but we're coming from the compressor directly in through here. See that? We're going from the compressor through here, and this signal's going right in here to the reverb. So in routing, you got to understand where these arrows are leading you to. So you understand how the routing's working and how you're using it. Now when you get here to routing, you're going to the compressor and an EQ. I suggest use this on your master output. That means that your signals will probably all go through this compressor
and EQ. This way you get your master output, or use it just mainly for your drums if you want to. But I prefer to use them pretty much for the overall level. So I got a decent compression going on here. As you can see here, we've got our attack, a release, a threshold, and a ratio, and of course our gain. So we can gain up the sound a little bit more. As you can see, I have a plus 3 dB here. So just move the cursor there, and we can increase the dB level output, see? So sometimes it gives you more output. That'll give you more output overall. So I may want to do that to get a much more punchier sound out of the system from doing rap or using dance music. I will run the drums through the compressor and the EQ. So I get a much more pumping, bottom-endy sound on the kick drum, and I may want to have it for the overall bottom sound, of course. And it's really good for that purpose. I'll also use the EQ as well. I'll pick the frequency I want to use. As you can see right here, we have our low frequency, we have our low gain, so we can boost the low level up. So we go to this level here, well now we want to gain that level. We want to increase the gain to that particular frequency. So I'm at 400 hertz, and I increase it by 4 dB, by 6 dB. Next we have our high frequency, so I pick my high frequency. Here we have a 2K, and I can increase that by 4 dB. So I go to here now. No matter where I move it, it's still going to be 4 dB. So you can only do 2 frequencies at once, just 2 bands. So you can only use a low freq and a high freq. It's pretty limited. And this is the overall level output of the EQ. Now again, you'll see it here that it's showing us that the compressor reverb send level is 127. And our compressor output assign is assigned to the MF effect 1, which you saw earlier in the routing. See? Compressor, MF effect 1, and here's the output level to the reverb, 127. So it's important to be aware of where you are in the mix, but particularly in the routing, you've got to know where your outputs are heading, what parts are going where, for example. And when you're doing this, I say, for example, I go back into the part here. We'll go to a new part. And here we are, and we're going to go to part number 10. And this is a new assignment. So you see what happened here? This moved down to here, and we have an output of our part 10, which is dry, which is going right to the mix. So I'll go down here, you'll see, and I'll turn 10 on. And I'll press play. So you see the kick has no reverb, but the snare does. And what I can do here is I can now go to, say, part number 11. Slight reverb on right there like that. A little slight reverb, real slight. You get an idea of what's going on here. So we can add effects to the sounds as we hear them back. Now, here in part 12, I'm going to go to part 12 right now. A little dry sound. Add a little enhancer to it. So right now I have the MF effects is 2, and I have an enhancer there. I want to enhance this hi-hat a little bit more. Give it more of that kind of like feel where it's right in the track. Before, without it, I'll go back to dry again. See? Nothing really happening here. That's MFX 1. Here's dry. I'm going to use MFX 2 for that purpose. I go to 13, turn 13. Now, I'm going to go to 13 now, with the cursor up. Now, sometimes I'm working my system and I've got everything together. I want to make sure that when I set my machine up, it's going to be a certain way. So it means I want to change the system parameters. So I'll press Menu. And here we see System. I'll press Enter. And we're in system. Now here, I can change the panel and the control, the sequence, the MIDI data, of course, the sound, sampling parameters, dB parameters, and system info. I can press F1. I can change the velocity of the pads. I got the TTE, the tap tempo. We also have here, we have the screensaver. So I can type, get the background, import bitmaps. I can import any kind of picture I want to import for that purpose as well. I can exit this. I can go to sequence here. I could sync the master, sync the output, arpeggio sync mode. I got the RPS trigger and the BPM lock. So it's off, as you can see right there. We have MIDI send and MIDI receive. And of course, we can write our system. I exit this. Oops, went too far. I'll go back here. I'll press menu again. And system enter. And I can also go here to sound. We have our levels. So I can have my master tuning. I can change the tuning. Now the overall master tuning always is going to be 44.1. And once I have that, you can see that's my hand going over this D beam, which I can turn off or on. And we have our master level, which is 0 dB. I have to keep mine maxed out, kind of keep the level right there. I have to go maybe plus 12 sometimes. So whenever you're outputting, say you're going to do the Pro Tools or some other studio, I want to make sure I have the maximum output coming from my machine. It's either going to be plus 12 or plus 6. I don't use 0 dB too much. I want to make sure that all the kick drums and snare drums are going out maximum output. So you may want to change that too. We have our metronome level. We can always preset that. We have the master key shift, so the 0 here, and the patch remain is off. These are sound controls. We have the rhythm octave, the resonance limiter, and we have our LFO, morphing switch, which is really cool for like LFO, low frequency oscillation, a particular, let's say, keyboard sound. And we'll exit this. We have sampling. So we have parameters for each one of these things. And what makes it easier for each part and each part of these the sample menu, you see this menu here, each part of the menu, we can change the parameters of everything. So we're going to change the parameters here for, let's say, for its sampling. As you can see here, we have default type is wave. So I'll say it's a wave file. And wave is a standard file or an AIF file. I prefer to use wave, that way you can use it on other systems as well. You can also import wave files. So, preset default load is on. Sample default load is on. Pre-sample time is set to 0, so it has to be set automatically. This trigger level is set. So whenever you turn it on, you can set your parameters for sampling. So you want to go back again and say, okay, I want to use this. It worked the first time. I want to use this instead. Well, no. From now on, when it comes up, these parameters are already set within the system. Makes it much easier. And the same with dB, which you can see here. And system information. So you have memory. This SRX is an effects card is not installed. This is our version right here of what we have. We can close the window also. It's features. Our features are right here. And close. So I prefer to also set my system up that way. Once I get to know my machine and I turn it off and turn it back on, I can start from where I'd like to have my setup where it's perfect. And I said, great. My setup is good. I've got the right sample sounds. I've got the right wave files, when induce wave files or not, and make sure my levels are right, and make sure my output levels are right. That way, no matter where I go, if I go to another studio, I want to dump something out or I want to bring some samples in, I know what the machine is set up for, and it's the way I want to have it.